And the Whigs also were split over the issue. In Maine, however, there was great indignation about the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And in the state, all over the state, on June 10th, mass meetings in 1854, mass meetings were held. Many speeches were made. Resolutions were passed in these meetings endorsing the Maine law, that is the Prohibition law, and denouncing the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and supporting Anson P. Morrill for governor. Anson P. Morrill was the Democratic candidate, the Woolhead Democratic candidate in 1853. The Democrats in their state convention, June 24th, chose Albion K. Harris. The Whigs chose Isaac Reed in early July. The Free Soil Party nominated Anson P. Morrill. The Free Soil Party also changed its name to be the American and Maine Liberty Party. Morrill was also endorsed by the state convention of temperance people and by the Know Nothing Party. So there's quite a coalition here. Essentially, a lot of Whigs, a lot of Democrats, the Free Soil Party, and Know Nothings, who came from each of the different parties, endorsed Morrill. And he was the one who had that major spike of that purple bar in 1854. It wasn't really the Republican Party yet in the summer of 1854. Now, local Whigs, Free Soilers, and temperance people engaged in negotiations all over the state to make nominations for county offices. We had these different candidates: Democrats, Whigs, American and Maine Liberty Party, at the state level. But the politicians were uneasy at this free-for-all that was going on. They weren't sure exactly who how it would shake out in terms of the votes in September. We were voting in September then. These negotiations were occurring. It was most successful to put forth a slate in Franklin County, or at least they were the earliest, and this was held in the town of Strong, and Strong makes claims that they are the birthplace of the Republican Party, not Ripon, Wisconsin. So they have a claim. This was going on all over the North, these kinds of negotiations. Okay, what happened in 1854? Well, in mid-August, the Whig convention assembled in Union Hall on Lisbon Street. And I haven't really been able to pinpoint exactly where that hall was, but that was the designation in the newspaper. The Free Soilers assembled in Auburn Hall on Court Street, simultaneously, the same day. The Whigs had their people, Reed, Chase, Warren for the county commission, Goddard for the county attorney, Pulsifer for clerk of courts, Hayes for treasurer. The The Free Soilers had their candidates. I couldn't find any mention of any particular candidate for county attorney. Negotiations occurred, and the Whig Party sent a delegation to Lisbon Street to the Free Soil Convention, suggesting this preliminary slate, what I named preliminary slate. And so Small was the Free Soil candidate, and then Perkins and Kilbourne were presumably acceptable. However, when this delegation came to the Free Soil Convention and introduced their slate and hoped that the Free Soilers would accept it, they declined. And this delegation had to go back to Auburn Hall am I getting mixed up here? Had to go back to Union Hall to report that they had been turned down. This caused a little embarrassment. C.W. Goddard was at the podium at the time, county attorney candidate, and he was giving a speech congratulating the Whigs and the Free Soilers for accepting the slate, but he was a little premature, and so ultimately negotiations continued after these conventions, and apparently because when we looked at the ballot, or at least the election returns, we find that the votes were cast for Reed, Chase, and Small for the county commission, and for Goddard, Pulsifer, and Hayes for the other officers of the county. These are the election results. For county commission, we ended up with 3 parties having representation. Chase for the Whigs, Small for the Free Soil, Waterhouse for the Democrats, and Stephen Reed, who was the chair of the county commission, that was the first chair of the county commission. These were Reed, Chase, and Warren were the first county commissioners for Androscoggin County. This county having just been created. But he was narrowly defeated by Waterhouse. And then the coalition of Whigs and Free Soil, but they're really primarily Whigs, won the other officers for the county. In the election, as I noted, the Free Soil candidate, Anson B. Morrill, won for governor. So he won for governor. Now, how did this all pan out? I have the main results for governor in blue, Lewiston results in red, Auburn results in green, if you call that green. Poland, I took Poland because it was an outlier. Look how democratic it was. 70% or thereabouts, or 80% at the beginning of this period. And then Danville. I put in Danville because our president of the society is from Danville. I'm very proud of that. And so, but this was representative of what was going on. There are two major things that we can see. First, Poland. After about 3 elections, then they start becoming conforming more or less with the trend that was happening in the rest of the county. And that big spike for Lewiston in 1854, they loved Anson P. Morrill apparently. Lewiston was had a very pro-temperance, pro-prohibition feeling, very anti-slavery feeling. When you look at the results for Lewiston, they are unusual, so that you note that the Whig Party ultimately disappears. The Whig Party did hold on with a candidate in 1855, 19.6%, in 1856, 5.5%, and then they disappeared. No real platform, for the issues of the day, and no hope of getting patronage, and so they just disappeared. And in the, I might as well complete the, yeah. And then the Liberty, what was first the Liberty Party, 1847, 48, 49, and then Free Soil Party, 50, 52, 54, and then 54, and then the Republican Party beyond that. And no, in comparison with today's alignments, Lewiston was just about the most Republican town in the county. But by 1855, there were really only 2 party tickets for the Androscoggin level offices. There were candidates for the Whig Party for governor, but the Republicans now, they had the Republican name. They're composed of Free Soilers, a majority of the Whigs, and the Woolhead Democrats. They've come together, and then a fusion slate of die-hard Whigs along with the Democrats, people who stuck with the Democratic Party. However, Morrill won only a plurality in the election, and he was defeated in the legislature because there had been somewhat of a reaction against the Republicans where they had adopted anti-immigrant and temperance, even more temperance legislation. So there was something of a negative reaction. And so they did not have a majority of the legislature. And so the legislature elected Democrat Samuel Wells. And so a well-established 2-party system was established essentially by 1855. Just a very quick turnaround, so that the Whig Party was essentially no more, and the Republican Party emerged. To put a human face on it, let's look at a few of the careers of these local people and what happened, how they maneuvered in this time of realignment. Dr. Alonzo Garza, I also was looking for people that I had pictured so that I could present them. Dr. Alonzo Garza has been the subject for some of our programs, and so we'll start with him. He was raised as a Whig. His father, William Garcelon, was a major player in the Whig Party. But then he associated with the Democrats in the 1830s in reaction to President Jackson's stance on nullification. South Carolina was not Alonzo Garcon's cup of tea, but he was very soon a Liberty Party member, and he was a Liberty Party candidate for the legislature in the House in 1848. And then he became a Free Soil Party candidate for the House in 1850. No election in 1851, but actually elected in 1852, and but then defeated in 1853. Then he very quickly became a leader of the new Republican Party, became a state senator of that party in 1854, 1855, and also a member of the House in 1856, and also a member of the Republican State Committee. And there was only one person per county on the state committee, so he was it. And then after the Civil War, he reacted against the radical Republicans in the Congress, and became a Democrat, and ultimately was elected as a Democrat in 1879. John Fry. He was a prominent Whig. He was state senator in the 1830s, a member of the Free Soil Party in 1854. So he was kind of a very early. He wasn't in the Free Soil Party toward the beginning, as was Garcelon, but once 1854 came, he switched, and then became a Republican, and was a leader in that party. Captain Daniel Holland, I couldn't always get the full history of each of these people. It depends on what I could find in the newspapers about them. But I did find that Holland was a little more resistant to the new state of things. He was a Whig in 1854. Maybe it was because he was so rich. He was the richest man in town. And so he was very cautious. But then he became a Republican. Maybe he got to the Free Soil Party earlier, but became a Republican in 1855. By then it was well established. Stephen Reed, I mentioned him. Stephen Reed was appointed to the first county commission and ran on the Fusion ticket in 1854 as a Whig, but lost. And he was on the Whig County Committee in 1855, so he still was not moving, but then by the late 1850s, he was becoming fairly elderly, and but he was a Democrat, but fairly inactive. Another kind of movement was Thomas Littlefield. He was on the Democratic, he was a county convention delegate in 1854, at least a Democrat in 1854, but by 1856 and 1857 he was a Republican, so he made the switch in that direction. He was one of those. Does anyone know Thomas Littlefield? Does that name ring a bell for anyone? Anyone who knows Auburn history?
He's the mayor of Auburn.
Or the railroad, the bridge.
Oh, could be. I'm not sure
There's a
whether it's
railroad.
even
Yep, there was Littlefield's Tavern.
that tavern or not.
There was a Littlefield's Tavern, and there was a bridge called Littlefield's Bridge, the
Yeah,
footbridge.
Thomas.
I don't know.
Wasn't he the first mayor of Auburn?
Yes, he was the first mayor of Auburn, so I add that to his career. But by that time, he was clearly a Republican.